I stated controversially in the 2024 preseason that I thought that Michigan State had one of the best Big Ten staffs, perhaps the best Big Ten staff. And while a win over Maryland, a Maryland team who had a turnover, who was outgained by well over 100 yards, and quite frankly isn't returning a lot of production from last year, a win over them doesn't necessarily indicate that Michigan State has the best Big Ten staff, or even one of the best. I think given Michigan State's recent history, this was a much-needed win. And it was a sign that at the bare minimum, Michigan State has a better coaching staff, a better head coach, a better strength and conditioning coach, a better offensive coordinator, and a better defensive coordinator, and better assistants than Maryland does. Because Maryland had, I said this in my preview, as for a reason why I picked Maryland to win this game, for which I was wrong. I said that Michigan State could win. I said that I would pick Michigan State to win this game if it were played in East Lansing. But with Maryland being under Mike Locksley and his regime since 2019, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years going on 6 years of his program being built, and Michigan State being in year one, full of over 50 new players, and taking over from a disastrous coaching regime that included Mel Tucker, Scotty Hazelton, and Jay Johnson, all of whom are frauds. I didn't think that Michigan State had the cohesiveness, the togetherness, the team factor to go up to Maryland and earn a win. I thought it was possible, but for that reason I gave Maryland the edge and picked them to win 27-17. You know, that was almost the result of this game, actually. Maryland and their kicker, Jack Howes, were in position to make this 27-17. And at that point, it's probably a Maryland win because Michigan State was being inconsistent all day long. He hooks it, whiffs it, and then next play, Nick Marsh is thrown just an absolute intercontinental ballistic missile of a pass. Accuracy by military grade into his arms for a 77-yard touchdown pass. Ties the game up, takes all the oxygen and energy out of Maryland, and then Michigan State gets the ball back. Joe Rossi forces a stop with his defense, and Jonathan Kim wins the game with a 37-yard field goal. Michigan State is better than they were last year. This is a team that plays hard. They have a plethora of talent, more talent than you may believe, and we're going to break that down here. But before we dive deeper, and I read you the stat lines, and I talk about the path forward for Michigan State and Maryland, I want you, whether you're a Spartan, a Terrapin, a Buckeye, a Wolverine, a Bulldog fan, a Crimson Tide fan, a Longhorn fan, a Hawkeye fan, even if you are a Black Bear fan from Maine or a Rattlesnake fan, I think that's Florida A&M's mascot from Florida A&M. If you're a college football fan, period, I want you to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, to click that notification bell, and to share this video around so that we can get more college football fans here on College Football with Sam. Also, via the links in the description down below, you can find access to my Discord server. The more members that can join, the better, because I want that server to be exploding with notifications, because I'll never turn notifications off on my own server on Saturdays. I want my feed to be totally full with notifications from that Discord server whenever games are played. So please join that via the link in the description and down below in the pinned comment. If you want to support the channel in more ways than liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, and commenting, you can check out my Patreon page and sign up as a member. Again, the links in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Thank you. And let's get back to what was a really just weird game. Weird in a similar way to Iowa State. Not quite as dominant for the loser. I mean, Iowa controlled that game really up until Iowa State's final drive. By controlled, I don't mean they were death gripping Ohio State, but they were in the lead, and it felt like they were going to win, that they had things at least somewhat under control. For Maryland, it was a little like that. Briefly, it felt like Michigan State could take a 2-score lead early in the third, but then Aiden Childs threw a pick in the end zone. Maryland went down, scored a field goal, scored a touchdown. At one point, Maryland was given in the fourth quarter, mid-fourth quarter, a 95.8% chance to win. From there, fail to convert, fail to get in the end zone, drops down to 94.3%. Then they missed the field goal, given a 90.2% chance to win still. One play later, they're only given a 53.2% chance to win per FPI because of an unexpected 77-yard missile to Nick Marsh. Aiden Childs looked like a quarterback who, in a year or maybe in a few months, but more likely a year or two, could be like a Heisman caliber quarterback, could be a historic college football elite QB. He finished the day off with 24 completions on 39 attempts, 363 passing yards, 9.3 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. He had 8 carries for 11 yards on the ground, was sacked 2 times, and he didn't have the best protection in the world, not the worst either. He did, I think, a good, respectable job of escaping the pocket, maneuvering it, and even of throwing. And that is factoring in the fact he chucked 3 picks, one of which, I think even 2 of which, were pretty egregious. Definitely on Tom Fornelli's whoopsie-daisy scale. Definitely. He's mentioned it several times on his show. Aiden Childs is like literally just like a wave, like a sound wave. It's crazy how up and down he can be. But that's only one takeaway from this game, and we'll dive into Michigan State a little bit later. But on this show, we save the best for last. We talk about the losers first, consequentially, get the ugly out of the way. Maryland, I got to be honest here. With the caliber of team you have, with the losses that you sustained in the preseason, this was a game that if you wanted to lock up a bowl bid, you could not afford to lose. Or if you wanted to chase bigger and better things, Mike Locksley saying that they want to compete for Big Ten championships, you cannot lose this game. They smashed UConn 50-7, and I knew that UConn was even worse than Florida Atlantic, and Florida Atlantic is terrible. But based off of week 1, Maryland looked like the far better team. And for much of this game, Maryland was in the lead, and Maryland for much of this game did look like the slightly better team. It wasn't lopsided at all for any portion of the game, but Maryland for much of the game outside of the early third quarter and the final minutes of the fourth was consistently ahead. And they lost. You have Virginia on September 14th, week 3 at 8 p.m. That's a night game. And Virginia right now, I believe Virginia's 2-0. They came back and beat Wake Forest by a point on the road. I expect that Tony Elliott is going to bring his best in this game. It's a revenge spot after Virginia was up 14-0 on Maryland last year, and then Maryland proceeded to blow them out. Then they get Villanova on the 21st, play at Indiana the 28th, and Indiana looks like, for an Indiana program that has just been horrible for most of its life cycle, they look like a monster compared to your average Indiana team. They get Northwestern October 11th, they host USC October 19th, travel to Minnesota the 26th, travel to Oregon November 9th, host Rutgers the 16th of November, host Iowa the 23rd of November, and they travel at Penn State to close out the year on November 30th. Right now, objectively, neutral field, off the top of my head, I don't have a power ratings yet, though I'm working on it. So this may be inconsistent, but if I were to try my best to objectively pick Maryland's schedule, I would say Virginia, I'd say win, though of course the best team doesn't always win. Villanova, win. I would say Indiana is a loss. Northwestern is a win. USC is an L. Minnesota is an L. Oregon, L. Rutgers, L. Iowa, close but L. but Iowa always plays teams close anyway, and their offense has issues in the passing game, and Penn State's a blowout. Like 4-8, 5-7 is what I would pick. Is absolutely what I would pick. And that's what I picked in the preseason when I picked Michigan State to win this game. And even if Maryland won this game with how Indiana looks and USC, they look better than I thought they were going to be in the preseason. Minnesota looks about the same. Oregon looks far worse, but it's on the road, and I just don't see how Maryland is beating a team like Oregon. Oregon will beat anyone, and I mean anyone who does not have great average trench play or higher. I mean, Boise State came close because they have Ginty and they have Ahmad Hassanian at defensive end because they have great players on the defensive line and experienced O-line and elite running back. Most teams don't have that. Even like Big Ten SEC, most teams don't have those type of individuals. And it takes a team, even with how down Oregon seems to be, it will take a team that has awesome individual players, and also great trenches. And I just don't think Maryland has that. Penn State, obviously, I think is still much better than Oregon. Well, not just better than Oregon, but Maryland. Sorry for the little brain fart there. Iowa, Rutgers, Northwestern, Indiana, Minnesota, they're probably winnable, but it's going to be tough. You needed this game. You needed it to go bowling after losing the majority or around half of your production, including your all-time leader in passing yards in Taulia Tagovailoa. And ultimately, it didn't happen. Maryland moves to 1-1, 0-1 in Big Ten Conference play. It is another winnable game where you have a clear advantage that Mike Locksley does not win, whether it was in 2022 against Purdue or last year against Illinois and against Northwestern. And, I mean, look, getting blown out by Iowa in 2021 doesn't help the case either. I mean, I don't fault him at all for losing to Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State. I just don't. But there have been winnable games many times with Locksley at Maryland, who's been here for now over half a decade. And he has a track record of losing some of these games where he does have an advantage. Maryland had an advantage here, and they slipped. They slipped up. They choked. Again, they forced 3 punts and 3 turnovers, and they still lost the game. They also missed a field goal, too. So, all in all, not a good look for Maryland. For Michigan State, they did not have a great performance either. However, knowing the type of team they were in week 1 and the type of team they were last season, the fact that they already have over 20 penalties on the season in 2 weeks, and right now they are averaging over 100 yards in penalties, and they still find ways to win. And they earned a sack and 7 TFLs. They got another interception. They averaged over 15 yards per reception and over 4 yards per carry on the ground. This is a team who, through the portal, good moves in the portal, some moves that I'm sure have probably not worked out, and better coaching and better game management, they're now 2-0, 1-0. And Childs in the passing offense looked better. The defense looked about the same. They're just playing a much better offense than Maryland compared to Florida Atlantic. My belief that Jonathan Smith is a top 10 head coach has been reinforced by this game. Since 2021, the beginning of 2021, he is 27-13 at Oregon State and at Michigan State. 2 programs who, under his regime, did not have top 30 talent rosters. And he's 27-13, 17-11 in Pac-12, formerly, rest in peace to the Pac-12, and now Big Ten Conference play. Now, I don't think Michigan State, they're not going to go 10-2. They're probably, I would side even closer to perhaps definitely not going 9-3. Because Rutgers, Michigan, Iowa, Oregon, Ohio State, potentially Illinois, Indiana, Purdue, and Boston College could have some weight to them. I know for a fact that Ohio State does. I think Michigan, Oregon, Rutgers, Iowa, they definitely do. Boston College has the best offensive line that Michigan State is going to face. This may be bold, but if Donovan Jackson's not back for Ohio State, it will be the best offensive line they face in the month of September. It will be. Donovan Jackson's a critical part to Ohio State's offense, and Boston College has a really good offensive line. So I'm saying that to say Michigan State's schedule is very tough. I mean, Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten. Michigan, the longer they go in the season, unless they quit on their coach, they're going to get better because of how young they are. For Oregon, they have some major issues, but a massive advantage over everyone except for maybe Ohio State in skill position play. Iowa just has really good defense, and they're going to be, I think, the same, if not better than they were last year. I'd probably still side towards better. I'm talking about schedules with these teams because they kicked off Big Ten Conference play. Michigan State earned a conference win. Maryland suffered a conference loss, and conference wins and losses are more valuable than non-conference wins and losses. Neither of these teams are going to be going to Indianapolis, but Michigan State plays Prairie View A&M next week. They can rest. They can try new things. They can try to get healthy because they sustained some injuries. And whether they want to try and earn a road win over Boston College, or maybe they want to shift their chips in the middle of the table and try to prepare for Ohio State and overlook Boston College, I don't know. But I can tell you that watching Jonathan Smith at Oregon State and in these first two games at Michigan State, that coaching staff works their butt off. They outwork their opponents, they out-scheme their opponents, and they need to get better at discipline. They need to get better at communication, and there's a lot of work to be desired. But Michigan State, as of right now, is like already better than they were last season. And they're probably close to, if not already better than they were in 2022. Like, if this team right now played 2022 Minnesota at home, they would not nearly get shut out 38-0 and score a late 34-0, or score a late garbage time touchdown, make it, like 34-7. That wouldn't happen. They wouldn't, I think, lay down and just die to Indiana at home. They wouldn't do that. They're better coached than they were under D'Antonio in the later portion of his tenure, and under Mel Tucker and Scotty Hazelton and Jay Johnson, for sure. I'm impressed with Jonathan Smith, and I have been for a long time. So this is not like me saying, oh, well, what a big win. No, this is a big win for year one, but in year two, a performance like this outside of the throws that Aiden Chiles made would and should be frowned upon. The Spartans are a team, again, that's well coached. They have talent. Aiden Chiles could be an elite QB in the future. Nick Marsh looks like a great wide receiver. Their wide receivers, some of their younger guys are coming through. It's an underrated group. Jack Velling had a few good plays for the Spartans. He had 3 receptions for 25 yards, 8.3 yards per reception, a critical first down. Monterey Foster, Jaron Glover, Nick Marsh each had a receiving touchdown. Chiles threw 3 picks. Jaron Glover fumbled the ball, but it wasn't lost. Nate Carter had a good game. 11 carries, 59 yards, 5.4 yards per carry. Their running back room is deeper than it was the previous 2 seasons. Their receiver core is being better utilized than it was the previous 2 seasons. Quarterback looks better than the previous 2 seasons. And Aiden Chiles right now looks like he has a way higher ceiling than Peyton Thorne ever did. It's just, on offense, you see the potential, and this defense is more balanced than any defense under Mel Tucker. And depending on what happens throughout the rest of the year, it could be Michigan State's best defense since 2019. Certainly will be the best defense since the start of the 2022 season. Because the 2021 defense, the secondary was awful, but that front 7 was pretty wicked. That's really my takeaway in this game, is that Smith knows how to coach. He knows how to maximize his team's chances to win. And they will punch above their weight class. That's really the concluding segment for the Michigan State Spartans. My MVP for this game is wide receiver Nick Marsh. Nick Marsh had 9 receptions for 194 yards and a touchdown. It was really 8 receptions, 194 yards, and a touchdown. But I included his stats from the previous game just to show you that through 2 games, because of an insane game against Maryland, but he's averaging right now about 100 yards per game. And he's young. So the fact that he's emerging here, it's the same. It's the same thing. Not saying they're the same caliber of player. It's the same thing with Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. It's the same thing with Ryan Williams at Alabama, with Bryant Wesco at Clemson, with Cam Coleman. You have a lot of younger freshmen who will have to play 3 years of college football before going off to the NFL that, like right now, are showing flashes of being potentially elite. Whether it's in week 1, week 2, one of them, both of them. And Nick Marsh could be one of those guys. We'll see if this is a flukish performance or not. But given the offensive pedigree of this staff, I kind of doubt it. I was really impressed with the routes that he ran. He caught 2 deep balls, constantly getting behind Maryland's defense. That's why he led the wide receiver room in targets, in receptions. If you don't count Aiden Childs, he led the team in total yards. It's crazy. And the defense stepped up, earning stops. Maryland was 11 of 17 on third down, but they stepped up and got a stop when it mattered. Michigan State averaged more yards per pass and more yards per rush than Maryland did. The only battle that Maryland won was the turnover battle. They had +2 in the turnovers, they had 20 less penalty yards, and they controlled the clock for about an extra 5 minutes. Michigan State, I don't know if they're the better team than Maryland, but they're certainly about equal, I would say. And seeing that this was at Maryland, Michigan State very well could be the better team. And I think by the end of the year, they will be the better team because there's a lot more moving pieces that are trying to get settled at Michigan State than Maryland. It's like the analogy I used for Colorado, Nebraska with, the Lego box. They're trying to sift the Lego box right now and see what pieces fit in and sort the different sizes of Legos, the blue and red type Legos and all the ones that have multiple moving parts to them, the ones that are just like blocks. They're trying to sort the Legos. Maryland has their Legos sorted, even though they have some new pieces and they have younger pieces. But Michigan State's situation's a lot more chaotic, and they still made more of it and won the game compared to Maryland. By the end of the year, I guarantee you, Michigan State's much better than Maryland is by the end of the season, even with the tougher schedule. I think that the staff's resilient. I think, therefore, the roster is going to be resilient as well. Watch out for Nick Marsh. Watch out for Aiden Childs. If he gets his turnovers under control, he's immediately one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Nate Carter, K'Ron Lynch-Adams, that's a great running back duo. And Daquan Dose has come through in games. Charles Brantley and Angelo Gross have. Chris Bogle has now had a sack in the first 2 games, each of the first 2 games. I'm impressed with this team. Ken Talley as well with a half tackle for loss, and he had a performance against FAU in the limited playing time that he had too. There are players on this team. There's underrated talent, so pay attention to the Spartans, not just this year, but especially in the future down the line as well. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. Thanks to Crash2488 and Braska Rascal for being Heisman Patreon members and sponsoring this video and channel. Thanks to Chris Slane, Conolulu OH, Ismar, and Tyler Nye for being All-American members and sponsoring this video and channel. Thanks to John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janisha Cockrell for sponsoring this video and channel as all conference members. This Patreon list will be updated for tomorrow's videos. Join through the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Also, check out my merchandise store via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. And for $25 a month for 6 months, you can get a free signed College Football with Sam t-shirt by signing up as a Heisman member. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you all very soon. Bye-bye.